Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Well, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, um, today is, of course, Monday, January 26th, 2026. So hopefully everybody's having a good day today. All right, I thought that finally came through good. All right. So hopefully everybody's having a good start to their week. We're just gonna wait for give people a chance to come in, of course, before we get started. Um, so pretty much finished off watching some cartoons from January 1944 earlier this afternoon. Just including Lulu's birthday party, which is kind of a cute little, little Lulu, famous studios produce little Lulu cartoons based on the comic strip by Marge. They were distributed by Paramount, the same company at the time that was doing like Popeye and Novel Tunes. So, um, anyways, let's see. Yeah, we got at least two people in here with a scene. So, friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. But with that being said, I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. Start off a little early here. As tonight we're gonna do a little profile piece tonight. Doesn't seem to be much in the at least in the realm of anime, cartoons, comics, manga. It doesn't seem to be much going on in the realm of news. So what I decided to do, we're gonna take a look back on we'll do a little voice actor review, voice actor profile review, as it were. We're going to be looking at the voice acting career of a man whose career has spanned parts of the last 7 decades, starting all the way back in 1967, and of course, is still active to this day. The great Frank Welker. We'll be looking at his career. Of course, most people know him from his role as Fred Jones on the Scooby-Doo franchise, but he had quite a few other things going on throughout the years as well. We'll be looking at all that. Also, of course, we'll have the wrestling round, getting all caught up on all what happened over the weekend, going back, looking back to last Friday night SmackDown, as well as looking ahead to, looking back also to Saturday night's main event, as well as Collision, and looking ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw in Toronto, as well as looking ahead to this weekend's Royal Rumble. And then we'll wrap things up with this day in Neat history. So with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Go ahead and pull up the article we're going to go over tonight. So let's take a look back at the career of the great Frank Welker. So Franklin Wendell Welker, born March 12th, 1946. So in about I'd say about 6 weeks from now, 6, 7 weeks, he's gonna be turning 80. And look at that. That's how he looks now. He's 79 currently. Born in Denver, Colorado. His alma mater was Santa Monica College. Known for, of course, Fred Jones, among other things. So let's go ahead and get into this. And again, as always, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, let's get started here. Franklin Wendell Welker, born March 12, 1946, is an American actor who specializes in voice acting. He began his career in the 1960s, according to the box down below there. He started officially in 1967 and held around 850 film, television, and video game credits as of 2020. So I wonder if that's going to be even more now. Probably closer to 900 by this point, maybe even closer to 1,000, making him one of the most prolific voice actors in history, with his films earning a total worldwide box office gross of $17.4 billion. He is also the fourth highest grossing actor as of 2024. Welker is best known for voicing Fred Jones from the Scooby-Doo franchise since its inception in 1969, and later the titular character himself since 2002. Of course, after of course the passing of Don Messick in 1997, and the role being taken over by Scott Innes, after Messick's passing, and up until that point. In 2020, Welker reprised the latter role in the animated film Scoob, the only original voice actor from the series in the film's cast. Well, yeah, I mean, even by that point in 2020, I think as I understand it, I think the only original voice cast member to still even be with us, I believe, might have been Stefania Christopherson, the original, the first voice of Daphne. From the series and the film's cast. He is also known for voicing Garfield from the Garfield franchise since 2007. In 2016, he received a Lifetime Achievement Emmy Award. He was nominated for the Children's and Family Emmy Award for Outstanding Voice Performance in an Animated Program in 2022. Now let's take a look at his early life and what led him, maybe some of the things that eventually led him to becoming a voice actor. Franklin Wendell Welker was born on March 12, 1946 in Denver, Colorado. His parents were Merrill Welker, a mining engineer, and Lillian. He moved to California and attended Santa Monica College in Santa Monica, California, where he majored in theatrical arts. In 1966, he received honors for his performance as the Cowardly Lion in the College Theater's production of The Wizard of Oz. Career voice. Now, we're just going to look at his voice acting career. We're not going to really focus in too much on his live action stuff. We're just going to focus primarily on his voice acting career, because that's basically what, of course, as cartoon fans, that's what we know him from. So, and again, a friendly reminder, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's continue on here. Welker began his career as a stand-up comedian and impressionist in 1967, before transitioning to on-screen acting and later voice acting. His first voiceover role was in a commercial for Friskies cat food. The producer's girlfriend recommended he audition for Hanna-Barbera during the casting of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Welker initially auditioned for the titular character, so Scooby. So he actually originally wanted Scooby in the first place. That's kind of an interesting little tidbit. What little crazy? Let's see. And in parentheses here, and according to Casey Kasem, the role of Shaggy Rogers as well, on parentheses there, but instead won the role of Fred Jones in 1969. Welker has voiced Fred in almost every series and incarnation of Scooby-Doo animated franchise, in parentheses, with the exception of a pup named Scooby-Doo, Scoob, and Velma, the latter in which he portrayed Fred's father, parentheses. Now, of course, in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, that was the one where the gang was, now you kind of did get a little bit more of a backstory that they all were basically were raised in the town of Coolsville, and taking them back to when more like they were kids, and Scooby was more like a pup. Scoob was probably just a thing where, just modern night. And then, of course, I think we all know the whole situation with Velma. Anyways, and has also provided the voice of Scooby-Doo since 2002. With the death of Casey Kasem in 2014, Welker is the only original voice actor still in the Scooby-Doo franchise. Yeah, I think the only other member of the original voice crew for Scooby-Doo, who, as I said, is still alive, I believe, is Stefania Christopherson, who was the first voice of Daphne. She was the first voice of Daphne for, I think, the first, 8 or 9 episodes, and then Heather North eventually came in to take over the role. I know that, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know Heather North, and I think Heather North more recently, but I believe Nicole Jaffe passed away maybe back in 2016. Cole Jaffe was the voice of Velma for many years. Heather North, who had taken over the role of Daphne, had passed away. Might have been a couple years ago, 2022 maybe. And then Don Messick, as we previously mentioned, had passed away back in 1997. So, hey, Metal. My question is, why do you ever expect me to be ready? It's just my way of reminding you, Metal, on that. It's just my way of just reminding you, making sure you're aware that that your co-hosting presence will be needed. So yeah, I know that maybe you don't put as much, I mean, you just come in and just do what you will, and that's cool. But that's just my way of just asking, making sure that you remember. So my way of reminding you. So, anyways, with that being said, continuing on here with what we've been talking about, of course. Yeah. So let's see. So now, now, granted, even though everybody knows him as primarily Fred in just about every incarnation of Scooby-Doo since its inception and all that, and his close association with Scooby-Doo, Fred Jones was not the only character he did over the years. His next major character voice was for Wonder Dog in parentheses, who was inspired by Scooby-Doo, and Marvin White in the 1973 Super Friends, also produced by Hanna-Barbera, in parentheses here. That same year, he played Pudge and Gabby on the Patty Frailing Enterprises animated series Bailey's Comets. Welker continued to provide voices for many Hanna-Barbera characters for several years, which include Jabberjaw, Dynamite Dog Wonder, and Shmoo in the new Fred and Barney show and its spinoff, the Flintstones Comedy Hour. He provided, again, he's provided a number of voices over the years for many people. Welker described the voice he used for Shmoo as a quote unquote bubble voice, a bubble voice. In parentheses, one he later used for Go-Go Dodo in Tiny Toon Adventures, unquote there. So, interesting stuff there. So he was also involved in Tiny Toon Adventures, which shouldn't really be a big surprise for anybody that that was the case. Let's see now. In 1978, he played the title character of Fangface, and later in its spin-off, Fangface and Fangpuss. Now that was a Ruby Spears Productions right there, but it had a lot of the same elements that were started by Hanna-Barbera with shows like Scooby-Doo, Jabberjaw, Josie and the Pussycats, kind of those meddling kids subgenre of cartoon. Between 1979 and 1982, he worked for Filmation, providing the voices of Heckle and Jekyll, Quackula, and Theodore H. Bear on The New Adventures of Mighty Mouse and Heckle and Jekyll, Spike, Tyke, Tuffy, Droopy, Slick Wolf, and Barney Bear on on the Tom and Jerry comedy show, Willie Sipe, Paco, and Sporticus 6 in Sport Billy. Various characters on Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, The New Adventures of the Lone Ranger, and Riff, Burble, and Gossamer in Black Star. Now they have actually, now we'll get to the Transformers later because they actually separate because that was, but among the other things, as we get into so during the 80s and 1990s, Welker became a very busy voice actor, providing the voice for many popular cartoon characters in multiple TV series, including Uni on Dungeons and Dragons, Brain, Dr. Claw, and MAD Mad Cat on Inspector Gadget, Mr. Mick Bitlick, Darkseid, and Calabac on Super Friends, the legendary Superpowers team, and he also did provide the voice of Toyman and Challenges Super Friends back in 1978 as well. I know we didn't mention that. Iceman and various characters on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. He was also Scooter in Challenge of the GoBots, Baby Kermit, Baby Beaker, and various other characters on Muppet Babies. Wild Bill, Dreadnought Torch, and various G.I. Joe heroes and villains, including, of course, let's see, some of the other characters on G.I. Joe include Flash and Short Fuse. And I'm sure he probably lent his voice a few times to some of the more random Cobra soldiers here and there too. Let's see. Scooter on Challenge of the GoBots, which I had already mentioned. Ray, Stantz, and Slimer in The Real Ghostbusters, the villainous Dr. Jeremiah Surd on The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Bubba the Cave Duck and two of the Beagle Boys, Big Time and Baggy on DuckTales. Multiple voices on the Smurfs, including Hefty Smurf, Poet Smurf, and Pee-wee. and various characters on Captain Planet and Planeteers. Basically, I'm pretty sure, especially with Hanna-Barbera, you probably would hear his voice or his work somewhere in any of those shows. Anyways, before I continue, I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. I'll be right back, but I'll put some music on to entertain you guys when I'm gone. And I'll be right back. Back. So, anyways, getting back to the article here, or the presentation here, as it were. He also voiced various characters on The Simpsons, such as Santa's Little Helper, which I believe was the Simpsons' dog, Snowball 2, which was the cat, and various other animals from 1991 to his departure from the show in 2002. Yeah, mind you, over the years he's done a lot of animal characters, and we may see it again here. But he also, of course, did Bronx, and he was also the vocal characterization of Bronx and Gargoyles in the 90s as well. Welker provided both the speaking voice and animal sounds for Nibbler on Matt Groening's Futurama. He provides the voices of Mr. Plotz, Runt, Ralph the Guard, Buttons, and other characters on Animaniacs. Go-Go Dodo, Furball, Calamity Coyote, Little Beeper, and others on Tiny Toons Adventures. Hector the Bulldog on the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, and Tomcat, Jerry Mouse, and McWolf, the main antagonist to Droopy, and his nephew Dripple, on Tom and Jerry Kids, and Droopy Master Detective. Let's see. He also voiced Gus Goose, Salty the Seal, Figaro, Pegasus from Hercules, Abu from Aladdin, Araquan Bird, and Cricky from Mulan in The House of Mouse from 2001 to 2003. Welker has also created the vocal effects for many animals and creatures in films, which I just mentioned right there, including Abu the Monkey, Ralph the Tiger, and The Cave of Wonders in Aladdin, 1992, its two sequels, the television series, and the remake in 2019. Arnold the Pig in the television film Return to Green Acres, 1990. The Whales and Free Willy 2, The Adventure Home, Shao Kahn and Reptile in the Mortal Kombat movie, 1995. Wow, okay. The Martians in Tim Burton's Mars Attacks, 1996. And the Penguins in Mr. Popper's Penguins, 2011. He performed Spock screams in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, 1984. Yeah, I do remember hearing about that too. And voiced the Thing in The Golden Child, 1986. Jinx the Robot in Space Camp, 1986. Totoro in the 2005 English version of Studio Ghibli's film My Neighbor Totoro. Alien Cell and Species, 1995. So even in, he would even lend his voice to some live action stuff and certain things. Malin Bolgia in Spawn, 1997. And Gargamel's cat Azrael in Sony Picture Animation's live action animated film version of The Smurfs. And as I previously mentioned too, he also did the voice of Bronk in Gargoyles back in the 90s as well. In 2006, he began voicing George in the popular children's series Curious George. He also voiced George in the animated film of the same name. That year, in 2007, Welker became the new voice of Garfield, following Bill Murray's departure from the role, and succeeded the original actor Lorenzo Music, who died in 2001. In parentheses there, Welker and Music had previously worked together on The Real Ghostbusters and the original Garfield and Friends. Unquote, unparentheses. Welker voiced Garfield in Garfield Gets Real. So that was a computer animated. These are some of the computer animated movies. Garfield's Fun Fest, 2008, and Garfield's Pet Force, 2009, and on the series The Garfield Show, which ran from 2008 to 2016. In 2011, he provided the voice of Batman in the Scooby-Doo crossover segment of the Batman Brave and Bold episode, Batmite meets Batman's Strangest Cases. In the same episode, he also voiced Batboy, the classic Mad Magazine Batman spoof, originally created by Wally Wood. Interesting stuff. Welker did the meowing in Puss in Boots, including in Shrek and Puss in Boots, including in Shrek 2. Let's see. Welker has also provided voices for many video game characters, most notably Disney's Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and the Shadow Blot in Epic Mickey and its sequel, Epic Mickey 2, The Power of Two, as well as Zurvan, also called the Ancient One, in StarCraft 3, or 2 rather, The Heart of the Swarm. He also provided the voice of the Mad Mage Czar for the Baldur's Gate video game series, and reprised his role from Avengers Assemble as Odin for Lego Marvel's Avengers. In 2016, Welker received a Lifetime Achievement Emmy Award at the 43rd Daytime Creative Arts Emmy Award. Now, as I said, we're going to skip over the live action stuff. And Transformers is something that he was pretty known for too, particularly the first season. As I think, let's see, I'm trying to think here. So 1, 2, 5 is 8, 9. So let's see. So he did Megatron. 4, 5, 3 is 8, 3. So of like I believe the 12 original Transformers from the G1, and they might mention that here too. The 12, basically being Megatron, Soundwave, the first. Well, I guess you could argue that he was all 5 of the cassettes. So, but of those of in that first season, right? The original main Decepticons, and it looks like they will probably mention it to a slightly lesser degree here. But basically, he provided about half of the voices for the original Decepticons, back in the G1 Transformers series, as well as providing the voices of Mirage and Trailblazer on the Autobot side, and then would go on to voice several other characters as well in that G1 Transformers series. So in the 1980s, Welker voiced many recurring characters in the original Transformers series. He voiced several Decepticons, including the leader Megatron, Soundwave, Skywarp, Mixmaster, Rumble. Basically he basically did the vocal characterizations of all the cassettes. Rumble, Frenzy, Ravage, Ratbat. I believe he was also Buzzsaw and Laserbeak as well. As well as Autobots, Mirage and Trailblazer, and Sludge of the Dinobots. He took on the role of Wheelie in Transformers the movie. And in the post-movie episodes, took over the role of Galvatron, from his Star Trek 3 castmate Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy did provide the voice of Galvatron in Transformers the movie, and also voiced Chrome Dome and Pinpointer during the season 4 Rebirth arc. In 2010, Welker reprised his roles of Megatron and Soundwave in the series Transformers Prime, retitled Transformers Prime Beast Hunters for its 3rd season, and the Transformers Generation 1 video game Transformers Devastation. Now, mind you, he did this opposite his old sparring partner on the show, Peter Cullen, as well. The two of them, Peter Cullen, who of course provided the voice of Optimus Prime, among other characters on the G1 cartoon series, along with, of course, Ironhide, Streetwise, Wingspan, among others. Let's see. In Prime, Welker significantly altered Megatron's voice from his Generation 1 portrayal to sound more sinister. In the 2015 follow-up series, Transformers Robots in Disguise, Welker once again reprised his role as Soundwave, who has broken his vow of silence since the events of Prime. Welker returned to 2 of his Transformers roles when he portrayed Megatron and Soundwave as part of a spoof in a 3rd season episode of Robot Chicken, which aired shortly after the release of the first installment of the live-action film series. In the second installment film, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, in 2009, he joined the voice cast and reprised the roles of Soundwave and Ravage, and also provided the voices of Grindor, Devastator. Devastator was originally voiced in the G1 cartoon by Arthur Burghardt. Don't know if he's still around or not. Arthur Burghardt, who also did, of course, Destro in G.I. Joe and Turbo in Challenge of the GoBots. Let's see. and Reedman. He also reprised his role as Soundwave and took on the roles of Shockwave and Barricade in the third film, Transformers: Dark of the Moon, 2011, and in Transformers: Age of Extinction, 2014. Reprised his role as Galvatron, albeit with a voice similar to his portrayal of Megatron in Transformers Prime. Welker does not voice Megatron in the first three live-action films. In parentheses, Hugo Weaving was chosen for the role instead. In parentheses there. However, he did voice Megatron in two video games based on the first two films, as well as the theme park attraction at Universal Studios Singapore, Universal Studios Hollywood, and Universal Studios Florida. Transformers: The Ride. In the fifth installment of the film series, Transformers: The Last Night, 2017, finally reprised his role of Megatron, once again utilizing his Transformers Prime version of the character's voice. As of 2019, Welker continues to occasionally voice Megatron in various Transformers media, alternating between his Generation 1 and Prime portrayals. All right, then. So there we go. That's all we're going to cover on Frank Welker there. So, with that, hopefully you guys got a kick out of learning about the great Frank Welker there. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap-up, as we do have a bit to go over here in that regard. Going from Friday Night SmackDown over through, of course, Saturday shows, and looking ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw. All right, so we looked out here. All right, so going back to last Friday night, Monday Night Raw, talking about that a bit here. Friday night, Friday Night SmackDown. I'm sorry, Friday Night SmackDown came to everybody from the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, as they were continuing to build towards this Saturday's. Well, they're not only building towards the following night's Saturday night's main event, but also building towards this Saturday's Royal Rumble. With Wade Barrett and Michael Cole on commentary on the USA Network, the opening match of the evening saw Carmelo Hayes successfully retain his United States title in another open challenge against former champ Ilya Dragunov, the man he took the title off of. Unfortunately, with some help from The Miz, as The Miz came in to cost Ilya Dragunov the match against Carmelo Hayes, as Carmelo Hayes did hit the first 48 on Ilya Dragunov to get the win. In a non-title match, Jade Cargill, the current WWE Women's Champion, defeated Chelsea Green, who of course had both Alba Fyre and Jordynne Grace in her corner. Jordynne Grace was actually just at ringside to watch a match, and then which prompted Jordynne Grace to once again challenge Jade Cargill for the title, for Jade to just kind of snub her. In a match for the WWE Tag Team titles, after a series of matches, the MFTs, in this combination of Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, with of course JC Mateo and Tonga Loa in their corner, finally defeated the Wyatt Six of Dexter Lumis and Joe Gacy, with Eric Rowan, Nikki Cross, and Uncle Howdy in their corner to become the new WWE Tag Team Champions. Nathan Frazier, with Axiom in his corner, defeated Johnny Gargano, who had Candice LeRae in his corner in just over 10 minutes. In a match to determine the number one contenders to the a triple threat match to determine the number one contenders to the WWE Women's titles, Julia and Kiara James defeated former champions Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, and also Nia Jax and Lash Legend. And the main event saw the match between Damian Priest and Trick Williams go to a no contest at 13:40 as both Sami Zayn and Randy Orton, Sami Zayn interfered in the match and eventually led to Randy Orton coming in to deliver an RKO to Trick Williams, setting up for the number one four-way the following night on Saturday night's main event. So with that being said as well, let's move ahead to Saturday night's main event. Talk about what happened at that event. Saturday night's main event that happened on the following night. Also coming from the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, with Wade Barrett and Michael Cole on commentary and airing on Peacock. The show opened up with the tag team of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky successfully retaining the WWE Women's Tag Team titles over the Judgment Day women's duo of Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez at 13:22. Raquel Rodriguez of the Judgment Day tried to get involved, only for her to be attacked by Stephanie Vaquer, as that rivalry is picking up, as Stephanie Vaquer is trying to stave off the challenge of the Judgment Day's Raquel Rodriguez right now. In singles action, AJ Styles, in a match that was set up on the previous night's SmackDown, AJ Styles defeated Shinsuke Nakamura in 21 minutes 17 seconds in kind of a callback to their match at 2016's Wrestle Kingdom in New Japan. And in the number one contenders fatal four-way match to see who would be in line to next challenge the undisputed WWE title. Sami Zayn defeated Damian Priest, Randy Orton, and Trick Williams by delivering a haluva kick to Damian Priest. So, now, originally, there was supposed to be a match between Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu. That match never got underway, as they just started brawling right from the get-go, and the match was never called, and they ended up brawling all over the Bell Center that night. So that's all from the WWE side of things. So now, or actually, well, at least from over the weekend. So now we're going to take a look at what happened on Collision. AEW's Collision. On Collision from Saturday night, AEW Collision coming from the Edition Financial Arena in Orlando, Florida, with, of course, Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, and Paul Wright on commentary, with at times being joined by Jon Moxley and Don Callis. Opening match saw Hangman Adam Page defeat Katsuyori Shibata in 13 minutes 22 seconds, and a continuation of the feud going on between Ops and Hangman Adam Page and Jet Speed, as of course, let's see, I can't even. They did say that, I guess, they did come up with a team name for Paige and Jet Speed, but I can't remember what it was now. But in a women's world title eliminator match, in which if the challenger either lasted the time limit or won the match, would earn a shot at the AEW Women's World title. Chris Statlander, the current AEW Women's World Champion, successfully fended off the challenge of Isla Dawn in just under 3 minutes. In a tag team match, the Don Callis family members Protoshita, Protostar Kyle Fletcher, and the Alpha Konosuke Takeshita defeated the father-son duo of Billy and Austin Gunn of the Gun Club. Number one contenders to the AEW World Tag Team titles, Davis and Doyle, Mark Davis and Jake Doyle, defeated the team of Jordan Oliver and Alec Price in just under 4 minutes. Then being challenged by, of course, FT, being kind of provoked from the stage by Big Stoke and FTR. In a match for the TBS title, Willow Nightingale successfully defended the title, successfully retained over Julia Hart. Julia Hart finally getting her rematch that she had. And of course, usually most champions have a rematch clause in their contract if they lose the title. So they finally got around to giving her that rematch. 10 minutes, 42 seconds. Andrade El Idolo defeated Magnus in just over 11 minutes. And the main event saw Claudio Castagnoli of the Death Rider successfully retain the CMLL World Heavyweight title over Roderick Strong in 18 minutes, 18 seconds. Of course, Claudio had Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta in his corner. Roderick Strong had Orange Cassidy in his corner. A lot of history in that group of individuals right there. So now let's go ahead and take a quick peek at what's going down on tonight's Monday Night Raw. As this will be tonight's Raw will be the go home Raw before this weekend's Royal Rumble. And as I am running a little short on time here, I will go ahead and just in the wrestling wrap up with this, and we're just going over this. So with Michael Cole and Corey Graves on commentary, coming from the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Tonight's Raw sees in 6-woman tag team action the women's world champion and women's tag champions Cynthia Akira and Rio take on the Judgment Day trio of Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, and Raquel Rodriguez in a number one contendership 4-way match for the World Tag Team to see who will be the next challengers to the WWE World Tag Team titles. The New Day of Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods will be taking on Alpha Academy, Kira Tozawa and Otis, as well as American-made the Creed brothers, Brutus and Julius, and Los Americanos, Bravo and Rayo Maricano. And in a match and I guess this was just signed, in a match for the WWE World Heavyweight title, CM Punk will be taking on AJ Styles, which I think this was just a last-minute thing, I guess. So that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up. I'll talk more about, we have more information for this weekend's Royal Rumble. I'll do that maybe tomorrow night. As I said, I'm running a little low on time as I was trying to get done by a certain point. But with that being said, today is Monday. Today is Monday, January 26th, 2026. So let's go ahead and take a look back at this date in Nietzsche history. So, all right. So first off, I'm going to head back 70 years ago. And on this date, 70 years ago today, back in 1956. In 1966, or 56 rather. The 40th issue of Girls Love Stories from DC under the Signal Publishing Company banner went on sale on its date back in 1956. Of course, comics were still 10 cents at that point, but the page count had gone down to 32 pages. It was a bi-monthly title. Of course, it just goes to show you that there was a call for like romance type, comics for girls as well at the time. The stories included Frightened Heart, Fools Fall in Love, End of a Dream, and Mask of Love. And I believe we see Mask of Love right there on the cover. So, Zena Brody doing the editing for that book. So, 70 years ago today, the 40th issue of Girls Love Stories went on sale from DC Comics under Signal Publishing Company banner. So now, moving ahead to the year 2011, 15 years ago today, on this date, 15 years ago today, being released, JC Staff's a certain Magical Index 2 specials were released on this date back in 2011. So 15 years ago today, the JC Staff specials for a certain Magical Index 2 were released on this date 15 years ago today. And finally, moving ahead to the year 2021, on this date, year 2021, so premiering on Netflix on this day in 2021, 5 years ago today, was DreamWorks Animation's Go Dog Go, which is an animated children's sports comedy television series based on the 1961 children's book of the same name by P.D. Eastman, which was developed for Netflix by Adam Peltzman. Co-produced by DreamWorks Animation Television and Wild Brain Studios. The first season premiered on January 26, 2021, followed by the second on December 7th of the same year, and the third September 19th, 2022, and a fourth and final season on November 27, 2023. So the first season of Go Dog Go premiered on Netflix on this date back in 2021. Alrighty then. So with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. I hope everybody got some interesting tidbits out of it. And with that, of course, we'll be back here with more Nietzsche News tomorrow. And on this Sunday, of course, I'll be joined by the Metal from the Vomitorium. We'll be finishing off our July coverage of 1940, looking back at comics that went on sale from Standard, Street Smith, and United Features. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.